Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is Good Filmmaking. One of my all-time favorite movies is The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. This is a film that I will definitely be making more videos about later on, but for today I wanted to break down some of the editing, specifically how the editing adds layers of meaning to the story. As always, spoilers ahead. Before we do anything, I want to first go over some of the history with editing and how it influenced The Godfather. In 1917, a Soviet filmmaker named Lev Kuleshov began publishing articles on film as an art form and experimenting on different editing techniques. In one experiment, he cut back and forth between the same footage of a man's expressionless face and a succession of 3 other images: a bowl of soup, a little girl in the coffin, and a woman lying in a chair. After each visual, the audience experienced a different emotion from the man, even though the footage was all the same. Alfred Hitchcock also does a really good job of explaining this concept.
Now we have a close-up. Then we show what he sees. Let's assume he saw a woman holding a baby in her arms. Now we cut back to his reaction to what he sees. And he smiles. Now what is he as a character? He's a kindly man. Take the middle piece of film away, the woman with the child, but leave his 2 pieces of film as they were. Now we'll put in a piece of film of a girl in a bikini. He looks, girl in a bikini, he smiles. What is he now? The dirty old man. He's no longer the benign gentleman who loves babies. That's the difference. That's what film can do for you.
This illustrated that the meaning of a shot was determined not only by the content of the shot itself, but also by its association with the preceding and succeeding shots. This general principle of editing is called the Kuleshov effect. Exploiting this effect became the guiding principle of a few Soviet filmmakers in the 1920s. Back then, the Soviet leaders believed that film was an effective political tool, and filmmakers saw editing as a key to involving the audience in political and intellectual revolution.
Crazy Russians started fucking around with images, all right, and juxtaposing them and creating different emotional effects.
These directors experimented with the notion that, just as an audience could derive emotional meaning from the juxtaposition of 2 completed, unrelated shots, so too could they understand abstract political ideas.
They could get a certain emotional and psychological effect by a certain type of cutting from one image to the next. And that became a manipulation of what the audience was feeling.
This became known as Soviet Montage. The Soviet Montage was a huge influence on The Godfather's editing. By and large, The Godfather adheres to the standards of continuity editing. However, the film combines continuity editing with montage editing to add layers of complexity to the story. In particular, Coppola uses montage editing to show that the mafia justifies its dishonorable activities by linking them to honorable values such as family and loyalty.
Connie and Carla want you to be godfather to their little boy.
Oh, we'll see.
Will you?
Let me think about it. We'll see. Come on.
Let's look at the first scene. Here, Coppola cuts back and forth between the Godfather's office and his daughter's wedding. Though these scenes are happening in the same location at the same time, one interior, one exterior, the lighting and tone are vastly different. In the office, Vito speaks about dark topics such as murder.
Instead, you come into my house on the day my daughter's to be married and you ask me to do murder. Money.
I ask you for justice.
That is not justice. Your daughter is still alive.
But right after, we're brought into the daylight celebrating a wedding. Because of the editing, we know that these 2 scenes are related, however, they are still separated in tone and content, showing the audience that Vito is capable of separating family and business. This is greatly different to when Michael becomes a new godfather towards the end of the movie. Now let's look at the baptism scene, which is by far my favorite scene in this entire film.
Micael, accipe sal sapiense propitiasse si tibi in vitam aeternam. Amen.
Coppola juxtaposes images of a traditional baptism ritual with images of multiple mob hits. Because of the nature between the cuts, it tells us that the boundary between family and its violent business is collapsing as Michael's becoming the new godfather. Visually, Coppola is telling us that Michael is less successful at separating family and business than his father. This even becomes a huge storyline in the sequel. Despite the differences between the act of baptism and the act of murder, the parallel editing tells us that these 2 are connected. Just as Connie's son is being baptized in holy water, Michael is being baptized in blood.
Michael Francis Rizzi, do you renounce Satan?
I do renounce him.
all his works.
I do renounce them.
And all his poems.
I do renounce them.
Michael Rizzi, will you be baptized?
I will.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Michael Rizzi, go in peace, and may the Lord be with you. Amen. We call it cutting. It isn't exactly that. Cutting implies severing something. It really should be called assembly. Mosaic is assembling something to create a whole. Montage means the assembly of pieces of film which, moved in rapid succession before the eye, create an idea.